Welcome to episode 4 of Terrier Talk. I'm your host, Max Sampson, and today I'm joined by our first faculty member, Allison Moloney. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are
Good.
you, Mac?
Good. I'm great. I'm excited. I hope you're excited.
Oh, you know I'm always excited to talk about science.
Yeah, of course. So we'll start today with a little bit about yourself.
Yep.
Tell us how you ended up here and how that's grown into your career.
Totally. So I was born and raised in southeastern Massachusetts. This will be shocking for you to hear, but I've always been a little bit of a nerd. So I always loved science, but I always loved school specifically, like not just the learning part, but also the community of school, the structure of school. So college was a no-brainer for me. I went to Bridgewater State University to study biology with a concentration in biomedical sciences. And then very early on in my college career, I had a couple of faculty members who noticed my curiosity specifically. And I think that that's important to note because they didn't notice that I got straight A's on all my exams. They didn't, care about my GPA. They cared that I was interested in the material. So they invited me to join their research group where we were researching a type of eye cancer. And from there, they encouraged me to go on to get a PhD. So from very early on, I knew that the way that they guided me through that part of my career, I wanted to do that for someone else. So I went to Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine to study cellular and molecular medicine, specifically how certain types of leukemia are resistant to treatment. And then I got the dream job for a researcher. I got a postdoctoral fellowship at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And after a few months, I missed school so bad. So, this was the spot to be, and I started applying for jobs at schools, and specifically schools in Maine. I noticed Thomas very early on, and it seemed like the kind of place where I could really focus on the student, really focus on education. But you weren't hiring, so I had to look elsewhere. So I worked at Colby for 4 years, Bates for a year, and I've now been teaching at Thomas for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now with you here now and with these new science programs, obviously there's been a lot of growth. Can you tell us about that growth, including this beautiful science lab?
Thank you.
And
yes.
Some of the new majors that we're offering.
Absolutely. So, anyone who's been here for about the same time as I have or longer, like the transformation in 5 years has been bananas. So when I came to Thomas, science was treated primarily as a gen ed, and there's nothing wrong with that. I came here knowing that I wanted to teach a lot of non-majors, but it was really guided by the students. So it had been sort of the assumption that Thomas students, they weren't really interested in majors that had to do with science. And we had just these awesome students who said they wanted more, and they wanted higher level, and they wanted more technical skills. So a whole chain of events led to us getting a bunch of great equipment to run new classes from various grants, and then a state of Maine workforce grant that allowed us this huge lab expansion, 2 brand new labs, equipment, a prep space. So the chain of events basically went, when I got here, the criminal justice majors or the criminal justice faculty, should I say, were expanding their majors to include more science. So the conservation law enforcement concentration and the forensic science concentration. That has now dominoed into a brand new revamp of the environmental science major, a forensic science minor, a biology minor, a biology major, and a health sciences major. And all of that has happened in the last 2 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot in a short amount of time.
Totally.
And I'm glad you mentioned the students, right?
Yes.
It's almost student driven. They say we want more. We want to learn more about science.
Right.
And obviously that's a big reason why we have what we have now, and we're very lucky. So with those students, there's a lot of different career paths that students could take those majors and go into, right? But we all know some stuff like you could go into your doctorate, go into biology, anywhere. Like you said, you were studying cancer in labs. What are some big major, or not majors, but big areas of work that people wouldn't necessarily expect that you could go into with these new majors?
Absolutely. So I think that the main thing to think about is that scientists are everywhere. They're lurking in every corner. So, like you said, you think doctor, you think person working in a lab, totally, doing research on cancer, something like that. But so the other day I had to drop off a radon test. Really exciting adult things, looking for radon in my basement. And I walk into, the office to drop it off, and there's a whole science lab back there. And they're testing your well water, and they're testing your air quality and things like that. When you go to the doctor and, you have to do these really exciting things like pee in a cup, or they stab the back of your throat with that little swab, and then they take it away. They're taking it away to a scientist to actually tell you what's going on in your samples. We have people who are organizing the data behind your doctor's office because your doctor's focusing on the doctor things, so someone needs to manage all that data. One of my favorite jobs that I didn't get paid for when I was a volunteer at the Boston Museum of Science, your badge gets you in and you get to hang out in the museum for free, but then your badge also gets you into the back doors. Every museum you've ever been in has been a museum within a museum. So there are researchers back there maintaining the collections and all that good stuff. But if none of that is exciting to you, I can take it up a notch. The brewing industry and the cannabis industry are wild markets right now, expanding at an exponential pace. And I think the misconception that people have is that most of that job is maybe sampling these things. And it's not at all. So the cannabis industry is run by botanists and geneticists, PhD level scientists that are making these products, something that people are interested in buying. And the brewing industry is chemists and microbiologists who are making sure that these microbes can make delicious beverages for people that are 21 and older, of course. Yes.
But no, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's both the museum piece and the last piece. I've noticed it here in Maine especially.
Yeah.
And when I was I think it was in 8th grade, we went down to DC and we went through all these museums and
Yes.
stuff. You only see the front stuff, right? And you see what they want you to see.
Yes.
But I think not enough people realize that there's so much behind the scenes,
Absolutely.
maintaining, keeping track, everything like
Yep.
that. I think that's an underrated portion of both of those at least. So we'll change gears a little bit now.
Okay.
Student athletes specifically.
Yes.
Obviously at Thomas, we have quite a bit of student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
What unique elements did they bring into the classroom environment? And I'm sure
Yeah.
you know from experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, some of our finest student athletes here at Thomas. I think student athletes at their best understand that balancing both is never 50-50. Mm-hmm. So there are days where, you are focused entirely on the game that you're going to. There are days you're focused entirely on the exam you have to take. And there are moments where I'm sure you all have basically every waking moment of your day is scheduled. So our best student athletes know that if you procrastinate, it's going to make your life a heck of a lot worse. So saying, oh, I'm not going to study today. I'll just wake up early tomorrow and do it. No, you won't. So our student athletes who are really on top of their schedule know how to time manage, know how to avoid procrastination and those sort of things, which are just life skills. Mm-hmm. The other things that our student athletes do that I think is just another great life skill is that goldfish memory.
Yeah.
So, especially if you're someone like a goalie, you see that ball or that puck get behind you in the net, and if you focus on that, it's going to ruin the whole rest of the game. So you have to just forget it and move on and go on to the next task. And I think that academia, but especially science, is that way. If you just wrote out a list of experiments and did them, everyone would have a PhD. Things go wrong, you have to reset, you have to regroup, and if you just sit there thinking like, well, I'm stupid, I'm the reason that it got messed up, you're never going to actually achieve the result. So you have to just let those mistakes go and move on to the next thing.
Yes, I think those are two of the biggest things. I would say I would totally agree.
Yeah.
Along with that, and obviously you mentioned the learning process too.
Yeah.
It's valuable to that as well. And for specifically science, how do you see that education process kind of evolving in the next 10 years or so?
Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. So I think we can, for science at Thomas specifically, what we have done with this lab expansion is give our science students the opportunity to do what Thomas does best, which is prepare students for careers. So when you're in the classroom, you can learn the theory and the content, and that's great and that's important. We have to know that. But, you know, I can teach them how to use all these fun tools and all of these great things that help you overcome the problem of, you know, you just got your degree, you're typing in entry-level jobs, and it says no experience necessary, but 2 years of cell culture knowledge and 2 years of bacteriology knowledge and PCR knowledge. And it's like, how am I supposed to get all of that if I haven't done it yet? But now in these labs, we can teach students all of those skills so that when they go to a job interview and they say, do you know how to culture cells? Yes, we do. Do you know how to do a bacterial transformation? Yes, we do. So we can really prepare them for getting out into the workforce. Yeah. I think in general, one thing that is for many fields, both a major pro and a major con, is science communication on social media. So I had a student who came up to me just last week and she started a conversation, you'll never believe what I heard on TikTok. I'm like, okay, here we go. And she was talking about this paradox of cancer being just a cell that made a mistake. So statistically speaking, animals with more cells would have a higher increase of cancer, you know, elephants and whales. We don't see that. So then my student is saying, on TikTok, I saw that there's this protein involved in non-homologous end joining that makes it less likely for a whale to get cancer. And I'm like, you saw that on TikTok? But now what she knows to do as a Thomas student is the next day I see her in my class reading the scientific article that gave that data. So then other times when students go, you'll never believe what I heard on TikTok. It's complete misinformation, or worse, disinformation. So we want to train our students to know that they're going to have access to so much nonsense and lies that at, you know, the simplest could just put something in their head that isn't true, and at the worst negatively affect how they deal with their health and well-being. So fact-checking science misinformation is going to be one of the most important things that we do in science education.
And I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Just with the social media age, right?
Yes.
Everything that's going on.
Yes.
Everyone has a phone now. Or
Yep.
Almost everyone.
Yep.
But just making sure you're being aware, have that in the back of your head,
Right.
like whenever you're searching or whenever
Right.
you're trying to, because information that's the good and bad thing, right?
Yes.
Information is at your fingertips. You can
Yes.
look up anything, anytime, especially now with AI,
Right.
And all that other exciting stuff. And some, like you just mentioned, some concepts. Are there any concepts or subjects that obviously we have a lot of student athletes here that you teach that they tend to connect faster with because of that sport experience?
Yeah, for sure. So in A&P, they're always excited to get to the musculoskeletal system, muscles and bones. They're always excited to tell me about all the things that they've ripped and torn and hurt and injured and sprained over the years. So the biomechanics, the way that our body moves and how we can train that and the limitations of that, athletes definitely connect with that. And also nutrition. So I think that what I really like about teaching nutrition is I get a lot of students coming in thinking, oh, we're just going to talk about food. And it's way more anatomy and physiology and molecular biology than they expect. But, you know, when I talk about things like dieting and say like, okay, how would balancing your macronutrients support your overall well-being? And then all my athletes are like, I've counted my macros before. I know that this percentage of fat versus carbs versus protein will have XYZ effects on my body. So they can really connect to that functional aspect of A&P and nutrition.
I think, yeah. So that's something our full-time strength and conditioning coach, Finn Ducker. Shout out to Finn.
Shout out Finn.
Shout out Finn. He harps the same thing all the time. Just with that whole area, it's just nutrition and how important that is for both on-field success, but off-the-field success too.
Yes.
Because in order to perform not just on the field, but in the classroom, you have to be helping yourself out, right?
Absolutely.
And whatever that may look like, it changes with everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the nutrition part. So this is the big one. Why should prospective student athletes choose Thomas College to study science?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've taught science at 4 different schools in my career. I've been to many schools as a student. And Thomas is truly my favorite place that I've ever worked. And that's not me just saying something for the camera. You know, it's really true. The community at Thomas is something special, as cheesy as that sounds. We're a welcoming place. We're a warm place. We want to see people succeed. But from the faculty standpoint, your faculty members came to Thomas College to teach. So there are other places where they're balancing research, which is great, and we want to be doing more research and involving students in the science department specifically, but our primary focus is the classroom. When we're applying for promotions, we are judged most importantly on our classroom teaching efforts. And then in the science lab, you know, other places you might get taught by a grad student or a TA, and these are super well-trained people who are doing great work. But here at Thomas, you're being taught by your subject matter expert. So we are folks who have worked in the field for many years, and we are the ones training you directly. Then when you're in lab, you know, we're waiting for a reaction to happen. We've got a little half-hour downtime while our gel is running or while your thing is heating up. And now you get to tell us about your career goals and who you are. And, you know, I have a class in this room that's 12 students. Next semester, I'm going to have a class in here with 7 students. So we get to form these really personal connections where now I can write you a really high-quality letter of recommendation. And the other thing we like to say, which isn't a threat, it sounds like a threat, but it's not a threat. You can't hide at Thomas College.
Yeah.
So if you skip class, we're going to notice. If you're struggling, we're going to notice. And since we're here as educators first, we're here to help. So when we see a problem, it's never supposed to be a punishment. It's supposed to be, how can we get you on track to do your best and get the most out of this class?
Yeah. I think that personal connection, I think that goes with everything or everyone across campus. That's one of the big reasons why I came here.
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm getting old now.
You beat me here?
You
got here
it may have
before
been
me,
It may have been the same time. So it was either 7 or 6 years. So ever since my first time on campus, I had a tour like the summer before. My parents felt it. I felt it. It was that personal connection, right? It's they care about your well-being.
Yeah.
And they want you to succeed. They want you to go on to do great things. And I think that's something great about Thomas College.
Absolutely.
I know I didn't feel that at other places, but here especially, I think that's fantastic and really valuable.
Absolutely.
In terms of your education. So, what I like to do at the end of these, towards the end of these, we're not there yet. I always ask some fun questions.
Yes.
So, what's a specific topic that you teach students that they think, oh, like this is gonna be boring, but
never
ends up blowing their minds?
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. So no one has ever thought science is boring in their whole life. So I never get that. But I guess if someone were to think that, it's actually my favorite thing that I always worry that they might not love at first, and that's cellular communication. So I study cell signaling, which is basically how cells make decisions. And then in organisms who are trillions of cells, how do those cells communicate with each other? Like, how does my hand know what it's doing at the same time as my skin knows what it's doing at the same time that my eyeballs know what they're doing? And at its worst, cell signaling is memorizing this entire crazy intertwined spider web map of like this thing bumps into this thing, bumps into this thing. But when you really appreciate that it's this whole multi-trillion cell game of telephone, and that your body is doing these things instantaneously to keep you healthy and to help you make decisions. My favorite part of watching my students who take multiple classes with me transform in their relationship with cell signaling is when I'll tell them something like, oh, okay, so now we're going to do, DNA replication. And the first thing happens is helicase comes in and binds to the DNA. And my students who have gotten a good grip on cell signaling go, why? How does it know? How does it know to do that? What told it to do that? So if you really know that like for everything to happen in the cell, it's a chain reaction, you start to not only memorize the steps of mitosis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, but know why the cell was able to go from one step to another. Yeah.
I think that stuff's fascinating because you could snap your fingers just like that, and your skin knows it, your body knows what to do, your brain understands it. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on, obviously, inside of you
Yes.
that not enough people are aware of. And obviously, there's value in that. Not just in what it is, how it is, but the critical thinking too.
Right, exactly. Most of our students aren't going to go on to become signaling biologists, but thinking about the how and why of a question is just really important for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, next one. If you had to be a piece of science equipment, what would it be and why?
Okay.
You can look around the room. You can take a second.
There's so much good science equipment. There are fun ones, right? Like there are all sorts of things in here, like the vortex dances and the shaker shakes and all those sort of things. But I think for me, it would probably be a fluorescent microscope.
Okay.
So fluorescent microscopy is always like the razzle dazzle of the lab. You put out this shiny image and it's got colors and it's got pretty shapes and everyone goes, ooh, right? But then how you got that image for most people, it is the smallest room in the hallway. It is pitch black and it is sitting there for hours meticulously working on getting everything just right. And I think that actually applies for a lot of Thomas College faculty members. If you're making it look easy and you're giving them a good product, then they think it was easy to do. And it's often a lot of behind the scenes work to get that final thing to look just how you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a similar question.
Yes.
If you could have a single superpower, what would it be and why?
So I'm not much of an adventurer or risk taker, so I don't know if I want like the super strength or the super speed or the flying or anything like that. At my best, I'm a couch potato with my husband and my dog, so I think I would like to talk to animals, and specifically my dog Monty.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people would think of it immediately.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did, because think of how much you could do
Yes.
with that. Like every single living and breathing.
Yes.
Well, breathing air in some way. That'd be mind-blowing.
See, I like how you're looking at it from the point of view of changing the world. I just want to tell my dog, I'm just going to work. I'll be right back. You're going to be okay.
There's value in that as well. So something I ask everyone when they are on here is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? That could be the best. That could be the most valuable. It kind of goes hand in hand.
Okay, so I need to be a little bit much, and I need to pick two.
Okay, that's fine.
I've gotten two, and I think about them all the time. So, number one, it was my very first day at college. I'd been dropped off at Bridgewater State, and my parents left, and I was absolutely panicking. I was lonely, I was scared, I cried myself to sleep that night, and I woke up in the morning and I called my older sister and I was like, Court, I can't do it. I don't know how to, I'm lonely, I'm scared, and I don't want to do it. So she gave, first and foremost, the advice that every good New Englander gives. First thing you have to do is go get a Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. So
very important, very important.
Yes, that nothing can be done without a Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. So I went and I got an iced coffee, and she said the next thing you have to do is people are still moving their things into their dorm. Their doors are still propped open. You have to walk into one of those doors and introduce yourself. And it's like that thing where I'm like, I'm lonely and I want friends, but it's terrifying to put yourself out there. So I made it all the way down the hall and around the corner, and I didn't walk into any doors. And I was like, just turn around and do it. So I turned around and I walked into the first door that was open, and the person who was in there today is still my best friend in the entire world.
That's awesome.
So I know, and it's serendipitous and it was luck, but like if I hadn't taken that advice, like who knows if I ever even would have met her, and now we're still friends. A scary amount of years later, 20 years later. But so that I think is just a good sort of personal life advice. Like, you can't wait until you're not scared to do the thing. Like, if you know what you have to do to solve the problem, whether you're scared or not, you just have to put yourself out there and do it. So it's hard to do that, and it still takes practice, but I try. The other piece of advice that I got actually from a faculty member in college was when I was applying to PhD programs, I was so excited, and he said, come up with a list of 10 schools and show me. So I came up with my list, and I gave it to him, and I will never forget, he looked at the list, and he slid it back across the table, and he went, that's not your list. I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, I can't help but notice that all of these schools are within a 2-hour radius of your hometown. It's like, I told you to come up with a list of the top 10 places that you want to work to get your PhD. it can't be a coincidence that all of these places are right near home. So I was really annoyed with him and I didn't want to do it, but I went back and I made a new list, and that list included Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and that's when, I moved to Maryland at 21 years old, all by myself, and the education I got was outstanding and the experience that I got was outstanding, but I don't think I realized just how different places in even our own country can be. I mean, it was 6 hours away from the greater Boston area, and Maryland has its own culture and its own problems and its own things that they're doing well, and to be able to experience a different part of the world and see how people are living, even when it's so nearby. And then I had the same experience when I moved to Maine, right? I'm like, oh, I'm from Massachusetts, I'm a New Englander. Again, Mainers, don't judge me. I bet Maine will be exactly the same. And I go to Maine, and they're, again, totally different people and culture and issues and, little things that they do to celebrate themselves and their community. So I think Mainers know how good they've got it. It's a wonderful place to live, and I found Maine, and I want to stay here for a really long time. But to go out and experience the world, even if it's just a couple states over, it really changes you as a person, and it changes your perspective. So you got to get out there and see things, even if it's just for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really valuable. I think that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time and chat.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
It was fun.